Good morning, everyone. So I decided I'm probably going to make this a thing. This doing an audio broadcast while traveling to the office in ridiculous I-10 traffic. So anyway, today the topic is change is part of the experience. So I had a lot of things on my mind as it related to change, and I wanted to just share a couple of those things with you. Very specifically, I wanted to share some of the change that I've had to go through in my career and in entrepreneurship and overall in my life. So often, and this was sparked by an article I read this morning that said that when we deal with organizational change, so often leaders say that change is hard. And when you start a conversation with change is hard, you automatically give a negative connotation to it. So if you're a leader and you're saying that change is hard, those that are following you are automatically relating to negative experiences as it relates to change. So by saying that change is hard, you are manifesting the action of people taking change in a difficult way, or perceiving that it is going to be difficult or the process will be difficult. So as leaders, we have got to learn how to change that wording. We have to learn how to prepare people for change in a positive way so that they can be receptive to it. And that is so important, because when people manifest or when people think about change in a negative way, they literally drag their feet. Their performance is poor. You have to pull them kicking and screaming. You have to keep reiterating the benefit or value in the change over and over again. And the truth of the matter is you're making it difficult for yourself as a leader. So as a leader, you have to remove wording or phrases like change is hard from your vocabulary. You shouldn't say that. What you should say is change is necessary. Or you should say that change is a part of life. Or you can simply say that every process in order to grow requires change. Those are things that have positive connotation or necessity. So when you create a necessity for change, then people understand that it is because honestly, the people following you or whoever is around you, they have to understand that whether they like it or not, change is happening every day all around them. There are just certain things that we receive as change because we feel we don't have any control of it. So a good example, let's say the rent on your apartment goes up. We receive that because we signed a contract that says that the rent could go up yearly. Or we receive it because we understand that we have to live somewhere. So if the cost goes up, we either agree to stay there or we go and we find another place to live. But that is change that we understand that we can control it. And if we don't like it, we can actually move to another place. Well, change in the workplace or change in your organization, it's the same. The truth is that people can either accept that change and roll with it and understand it, or they can find another place to go. But you don't want to present change to people in that way. You want to make it easy for those people to be receptive of change. So, what do I suggest for leaders? The first thing I suggest for leaders is, number one, don't just throw people into change. You literally have to court people through the process of change. So what you want to do, I tell people that is definitely that's part of strategy. So if you're a leader and you don't know how to do communication strategies, sit down and practice that, study that, figure out what that looks like. Because what you want to do is you want to start massaging change in your organization. So you want to start, it's kind of like a movie. You want to have like a slow drip that you tell people, you explain to them that the change is coming. But I tell people, don't lead with the change, lead with the why. Tell them why things are changing. Even better, tell them what is not working. Tell them, hey, right now our numbers are low. Because the numbers are low, bonuses may not be like they have been in the past. Now you are setting people up to understand that this change is coming because it is going to benefit me. because it's going to benefit my pockets. So if you lead with the why and you lead with what is broken, a lot of times you can get people to buy into the change faster than what they would if you just come in and say, well, we're changing this and that's it, and just expect people to roll with it. So again, as a leader, you should be you should be doing a communication strategy that is leading your group of people into change. You want to start with the value and the benefit. You also want to tell them what is not working and how you want to tell them what's not working, but it's important for you to tell them that what is not working and how it is impacting them negatively. So if they can grasp that and they can see that the change involves improving the situation so that they can begin seeing a reward from it, that's how you start with positive change. That's how you get people to understand that assimilation is important. They have to assimilate in order to get to the point where they can reach the reward. So let me tell you guys a little bit about some of the changes that I've had to go through so that this can be helpful. So I worked for Verizon Wireless for a very long time, and I was lucky to have some really good leaders and some really good bosses. But very specifically, one of the things that I remember the most is Amir Elder. I don't know if he'll get mad because I use his name, but he was the best boss I've probably ever had. And one of the things he would tell us all the time as we were growing in leadership as African American women, he would say, you know, don't be the black girl with the attitude. Don't be the black girl with the chip on your shoulder. Be the person that can positively communicate in such a way that get people to receive what you're trying to tell them. And so one of the things that I learned that was the most difficult as it relates to being a trainer is that there's so much change that happens in the workplace. And when you're training, you are actually training people on new processes. You're training them on new procedures, or you're training them to do things that will bring something for the organization that's better. So very specifically, when you're training customer service, you're teaching people how to talk to your customers. And that is so important. But you have to change the agent's mindset. They have to understand that this is not just a job. This is a job where you are impacting people every single day. You may be the catalyst that changes something in someone's life, and you're doing that every day. So being able to communicate is a huge part of being a leader, whether you're leading in a classroom, whether you're a manager leading a team, whether you're leading in your home. You have to be able to communicate, and you have to be able to communicate change effectively and efficiently. So how did what Amir say change my life? Well, it changed my life because I realized that I really did have a defense mechanism that offered or rendered itself when things needed to change or when it was things that I wasn't sure of. So basically, honestly, if I could be transparent, my defense mechanism rears its head when I'm unsure, or when I'm scared, or when I'm afraid of something. When you don't really know how something is going to turn out, well, guess what? That's change. So a lot of us immediately go into defense mode when change is afoot. And we have to learn that being defensive makes you less receptive to change. So if you understand that we as humans operate that way, then as a leader, you have to be prepared for that. You have to know that your followers or your employees or the people that volunteer for your nonprofit organization, when change comes about, they're going to automatically be defensive, and you have to help them with lowering their guard. So that's one instance in my life that caused change. And to be honest with you, I've lived my life like that going forward, knowing that when I'm leading people and change comes, I cannot automatically be defensive. I have to be the one that receives the change first, understands what it is, and I have to find the value in order to deliver that value to my troops. So that's super important. The next change, and this one is so important, whenever you go through a change that is negative and you really just don't see the value, I got laid off from Verizon Wireless, and it was a job that I absolutely loved. I loved training at Verizon. I loved being one of Amir's employees, but change and layoffs are just, it's part of life. There's absolutely nothing that you can do about it. So instead of being bitter at the management that had to let me go, I had to understand that one day I was going to own my own business, and I knew that that was a business move. So what do you do when you have to scale back as a company? And I say this as it relates to now me being a business owner. When you own a business, you have to be scalable. You have to be able to quickly scale up, or you have to be able to quickly scale down. Either way. Because economically, one of the things, and I do business plans and I talk to people about business planning. So very important is you have to worry about threats. And threats are that you could get a deal that you have to immediately start producing, but you don't have enough staff or you don't have enough resources for that. So how do you scale up to that immediately so that you don't lose that contract? But the other side of that is what happens when economically you have to immediately scale down. What does that look like? Do you just go in the office and tell people, oh, we're not making enough money, so we're going to have to cut back and we're laying off 15 people? If that's what you do as a leader, that is absolutely horrible. You should be in enough control of your books and know what's going on with your business to understand that you don't just make a decision tomorrow to lay people off. That is impending. It is something that is en route. So you should be letting your employees know. And the easiest thing is that you have to have something in prepared. And again, that's a communication strategy. So if you're a business owner or if you're a manager and you know that the belt is tightening at the company, go ahead and prepare a communication strategy. There is nothing worse than a manager that tells somebody last minute that they should potentially be looking for a job. You literally are cutting those people off at their foot, especially considering the economic climate right now. If people are going to be employed, the truth is that they may be unemployed for more than a year because it's so difficult to find a job, or they may be employed and have to take a pay cut that is half of what they have been making. So have a communication strategy in place for how you're going to talk with people. The thing that I loved about my manager is that Amir actually was active in the process of helping me find another job. And he was there for me with what I needed. He was there to be a recommendation for me. He gave me some suggestions of places that I should go. And the truth of the matter is, because of him, I literally had another job within 4 weeks of being laid off from Verizon. That doesn't happen to everybody. It is not the end game for every scenario when a person gets laid off. However, if you are that type of manager and you know that your people are going to have to go through some type of layoff, please be the person that communicates that change in a way that helps people so that they can better prepare for the next level in their life. And I had the opportunity to have that through my manager. And just so you guys can know, it has always been my goal to be that type of manager and also be that type of leader with my new organization. So I said all of that to say that you should prepare yourself for that type of change, especially if your group is potentially, if you have to scale down in your business. So have a plan prepared. Know what you're going to say to your employees when you have to scale down. Another thing, go out and employ someone that helps you with organizational change as it relates to downsizing. That is super important. There are people that that's what they have. They have certificates. They have black belts. That's what they do. They teach you how to make your business lean. They teach you how to streamline things. But the other thing is, a lot of them are also experts at communication strategy as it relates to downsizing. I will implore you to consider getting services in place to help those employees that will be laid off. So go and find a workforce solution that helps them with updating their resume. Some people have not interviewed in years. So go out and get someone that can assist them with the interview process. Go out and get someone that may be able to talk them through the emotions that they will go through as it relates to being downsized and scaling back on the money that comes into their house. The next thing is, if you own a small business and you interact and collaborate with partners on a regular basis, and you know people who own businesses that are looking for good employees, why not set your employees up to get jobs at your competitor or to get jobs at other places with people that you have collaborated with that you know will treat your people right? And here's why. Because at some point when you get your business back on target, guess what? Those people are more than likely to come back to your business because you treated them fairly. So that I'm not going to go too much more about that, but hopefully that is something that helps you guys, because when it relates to change and downsizing in your business, it is so important that you treat people the way that you would want to be treated. I do know that it's business and I understand that downsizing happens, but there's no reason that we can't be human about it and understand how it impacts people, not just people, it impacts their families. It impacts as a whole, it impacts the community in which they live. It impacts the state that they're in, and it impacts us nationally and globally. So let me move on to the final piece of change, because I am almost at the office. The final piece of change is going to be when you have to make personal changes that you don't necessarily agree with, or if you have to make changes that you feel negatively impact your character, or there is just not something that you would personally choose to do at work. I'm going to tell you guys that you have a choice. One of the things about me is that I've always decided that if a business wants me to do something that is against my moral or ethical code, I'm not going to do it, and I'm going to be vocal about it. I don't feel that I have to feed my family in that way. Now, does that mean that it might cause some kind of hardship for me? Yes, it might. But as a person, all I have to live with or live by is my moral and my ethical code. So because I'm strongly moral and strongly ethical, if a job or if a partnership is asking me to do something that I don't believe in, I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to express myself and tell them that I'm not going to do it. But then I'm going to start my game plan for what's my next step to remove myself from this situation. So know that that is also very important, that you know what, and we talked about this. We talked about, or on one of my previous recordings, I talked about boundaries, and that is a boundary, knowing what you will and what you will not do. And that is, boundaries are a part of change. So just keep that in mind. So lastly, just know this. When it comes time for change, and if you are resistant to change, you have to ask yourself, what is going on with you internally that every time change presents itself, you will not yield to it? Every time change presents itself, you're the one that's negative about it. You're the one that always has something nasty to say. You're the one that's always, you never want to go along with the program. You're always the absolute last person to be involved in the change. But you eventually do it, but you kick and scream the whole way. You have to ask yourself, what is going on with you internally that you are not receiving change? Because change is going to happen whether you're on board or not. Whether you make change comfortable for yourself or uncomfortable for others, it's going to happen, because change happens every day. So I challenge you guys to ask yourself, what's going on with you? What are you afraid of? Why do you get yourself into situations where you are so complacent with the way things are going that when you're challenged to change to be better, you don't want to do that? So a lot of times I tell people that change is with a purpose. Nobody changes things for it to be worse unless there's a hidden agenda, but that hidden agenda is going to do something for the other person. So know that change is generally supposed to be for the best. And if you see that it is not for the best, then point that out. Tell people, say, hey, I see that you desire for us to change in this way because this is the outcome. I see a couple of things that could be improved within this change, and this is what they are. So always try to be on the positive side of change. And if you have to, make sure that you are being an advocate for change and receive it so that you can change in a way that works best for you. So I gave a lot of change about work and career, and I also talked about if you're an entrepreneur, but I did want to take a moment just to talk about personal change. So a lot of times some of us will, we we accept change as it relates to work. We accept change as it relates to entrepreneurship or our job or financial change. But we also have trouble with changing personally. So changing as it relates to the relationships that we have in our life, or changing to better ourselves, just personal betterment. And I want to share with you guys this. If you remain where you are going to keep getting the same results. So if you have an unhappy marriage, there is no one for you to blame but yourself. You cannot blame your spouse for being unhappy in your marriage, because your spouse is not responsible for your happiness. You are. You can't blame other people for being unhappy with your self-image. If you are unhappy with your self-image, you are the person that is responsible for that. So let me give you guys my personal anecdote for that. I had picked up about 92 pounds going to another job. I was super unhappy. I was working 18 to 20 hours. And I was super unhappy. Like, I was depressed, unhappy. And that's hard to admit, because I was making more money than I had ever made before in my life. I was traveling all the time for my job, which I love to do. But I was so unhappy because the job that I had, I didn't like the values. I didn't like the way they treated their employees. And this is Samsung I'm speaking of, because I did love Verizon. But they didn't value the employees. And the truth of the matter is that they literally gave us directives and they told us to make changes, but they really didn't want change to happen. They really wanted us to maintain the status quo. And the status quo wasn't helping anyone grow. So with that being said, I was so unhappy that I said, Tiffany, you've got to do something, because at the end of the day, my happiness isn't, my job does not dictate your happiness. The amount of money that you make does not dictate. It helps, but it doesn't dictate your happiness. You could be rich, you could be skinny, you could be fat, you could be pretty, you could be ugly, you could be everything. Any adjective that you want to attach to it, you could be all of those things. But if you are not happy with yourself, if you do not adore yourself, if you're disappointed with the things that are happening in your life and you are not making changes to grow or do something different, you are going to be unhappy. You're going to be miserable even. And the sad part is, miserable people tend to make those around them miserable. So my challenge to you guys, if you are not happy in your life, you have got to start right now, today, fixing that. You have got to go sit down and figure out what makes you happy. What do you love to do? What puts a smile on your face? What brings you joy? Whatever that is, go and do that today. And then you need to figure out, how can you incorporate that thing that brings you joy into your everyday life? For some of us, that requires a job change. For some of us, that requires a spouse change. For some of us, that requires a spiritual journey. But you have to figure out what that is, because you only get one life. This is not a dress rehearsal. You do not get a do-over. You have got to do what makes you happy. Now, I'm not going to tell you that being happy doesn't require sacrifice or change, because it does. I started my own business because I said I never wanted to be laid off again. But also, I didn't like the way I was being treated in corporate America. I had all these skills and all this experience and expertise, and I'm such a dedicated worker. I'm very loyal. I'm an overachiever. But I found that I was being treated just like the same people who came to work and did little to nothing. And not only did we make the same amount of money, but we got the same accolades. So I was like, if I'm busting my butt and I'm doing all of this work, why am I not being set apart from these people who are on Facebook all day? But that was up to me. I had to make that change. Good morning, Monique. So just know that whatever it is that makes you happy, you must do more of it. I'll tell you guys, I had a goal to start my own business, but in starting the business, I decided I wanted to write more because I love writing. I wanted to be a writer ever since I was 6 years old. So right now I'm in the process of writing a book. There's so many things in my life that I wanted to do. And I realized there's nothing stopping me but me. It's the dialogue that is going on in my head that stops me. So you've got to learn how to silence that and just go out there and get what it is that you want. Go do it. Now, you're going to have to make some sacrifices. I want you guys to know I don't live like I used to live. I joke with people. A really close friend of mine named Moana, she and I, every 2 weeks, we would go out and have $200 dinners. That was part of what we did. We would go out and get, every time we were trying a new steak place every 2 weeks. And every time I'd bring a receipt home for $230 something, my mom would be like, girl, you crazy. But that was our life because we were making a lot of money. Now I'm not making that kind of money. I'm happy for Two-Piece Tuesday. I need y'all to understand. Two-Piece Tuesday for $1.49 is my pleasure. But you have to understand that I'm making those sacrifices because I'm trying to build a business. There was a time when I stayed in Macy's buying business clothes and buying power business suits. Now, I'm going to be real with you. I've lost a lot of weight because I had weight loss surgery. My girlfriends have given me clothes. And I'm okay with that I'm not ashamed of that because I'm trying to build an empire. And you have to know that if you want change in your life, if you want things to be different, if you want the sun to set on your life and people being able to say that she accomplished some of the things that she truly wanted to do, or if you want people to be able to say, hey, he did all of these things to build a legacy for his family and for his grandkids and for his great grandkids, then you're going to have to make some sacrifices now. That does not mean you have to start your own business unless you want to. That means that if you have a job and you need to be a good steward over the finances that you have right now and make some savings so that you can build a trust for your grandkids, then baby, that's what you need to be doing. That's change. But whatever it is that you need to do or want to do to make yourself a better person, you need to start doing that now because tomorrow is not promised. You don't know whether or not you're going to be here next week. So if you don't know if you're going to be here next week, you might want to save that $100 for your daughter or for your son. If you don't know whether or not you're going to be here next week, please go get a will. So what you have can be easily transferable to your family. None of us want to think about death, but it's going to happen. That is an inevitable change. I want to make sure you guys know that. So how do you prepare for that inevitable change? You have to prepare not only yourself, but you have to prepare your family for your transition. And what I say is be happy while you are here. Love people while you are here. Have conversations with people while you are here. So I'm going to leave you guys with a thought. One of the things that I do, and if you are a really good friend of mine, and if you happen to listen to this broadcast, you know that this is true. I record little messages and send them to my friends. Not just a text message, but I use the audio recorder and I record little messages and I send them to my friends and I tell them how much I love them. I tell them how proud I am of them and I tell them how much I love them. And I tell them what it is that they're doing good. And I tell them that they should keep it up. And I tell them that they inspire me. That is something that I do because I felt like it was a change that I had to make in my life. I felt like people knew that I loved them, but I didn't think they knew how much I loved them. So it's something I made the decision that I was going to change. I was going to start openly sharing with people the love that I have for them. And I had to learn it doesn't make me vulnerable or weak to tell people that I love them. It doesn't make me vulnerable or weak to tell people, hey, you know what? This is a new me. And I like the you that you are. So I said that to tell you guys, make some kind of change today. The more difficult the change, honestly, the better. The more difficult it is, that's God letting you know that it's what you need to do. So try to make some kind of change today to move towards making yourself happy. Make a change towards to move or make your family happier or to put them in a better position or a better situation. I challenge you to try to make a change in your business, in your job, but also make personal changes that make you a better person. So that's all I have for you guys today. My name is Tiffany Taylor Hicks, and I am the owner of Velvet Rope Experience with the emphasis on experience. And today, change is part of the experience. It is all about the experience. If you guys haven't had a chance, go and take a look at my business page. It is Velvet Rope Experience Training Solutions, and give us a like. If you know anybody that might need my expertise, which I've talked to you guys a little bit about what it is, but I do training. I do business training. I also do experience training. So I help people with massaging change throughout their organization. And you can reach me at Tiffany@velvetropeexperience.com. I enjoy talking with you guys on my way to the office. And until then, it's all about the experience. Have a great day.